now, so hopefully everybody can hear me. It's great to meet everybody. So hi, I'm Chris Mentrek, and I work at a place called Observatory Park in Montville Township, which is in Geauga County here in Ohio. So if you've ever heard of Observatory Park, go ahead and give us one of those thumbs up reactions if you feel like it. And if you've never heard of it, that's totally okay. We're one of the county parks here in Northeast Ohio, and it's kind of devoted to the night sky. It's, it's easy to set up a nature preserve when you want to preserve something very specific here on the ground, like a Grand Canyon or a lake. But we're a preserve that's set up to preserve the view of the sky. So we're in a very dark spot, far away from a lot of the city lights, and we're on the closest thing to a hill that you get in this part of Ohio. So it gives you a great view of the sky. So we've set up telescopes and a planetarium, and our original hope was that, we can have the AMLA folks come to Observatory Park, and we can all meet in our planetarium and look up at the ceiling together, but that really hasn't been happening this last calendar year because we can't put a whole bunch of people in a big dome together and have us all coughing on each other. Terrible idea. So we're trying to do this virtually. So you folks are kind of the pioneers of this new way of sharing what to learn about the sky. So pat yourselves on the back for that. It's kind of cool that you're the first. And additionally, pat yourselves on the back a second time because you picked a great month to be asking what's going on in the sky. This is a great month. There's a lot of really cool stuff. And yeah, if you had asked me to do this presentation in, let's say, November or August, it would not have been as exciting. So you picked a great time. So I'm going to try to, instead of showing you this amazing video of me sitting in the basement where we get the best internet reception, I'm going to try and share a picture with you. So in a moment, if that picture shows up, go ahead and give us another thumbs up so that we know that the screen sharing is working. All right, here we go. Ooh. That's always good. We've got, this is a picture of Observatory Park. Oh, good, I'm seeing lots of thumbs up. That means folks are seeing this picture. That's great. So this is one of the observatories within Observatory Park. And an observatory is different from some other building like a bakery or a bank in that what we do at observatories is we've got telescopes and other things to help you look at the sky. So this is an old kind of hand-me-down observatory that we got. A university built it way back in the 20th century, and they essentially just abandoned it. So the park has been restoring it, and now it's open to the public. So in healthier times, we'd have 6 viewing nights every month where anybody can just drop in at the park and enjoy the view of the sky. If you want, keep an eye on our website. I'm showing you a link at the end, and you can find out when our next in-person viewing sessions will be. That's probably going to appeal to the folks here in Northeast Ohio more than it will to the folks in Washington State and West Virginia and Florida who told us where they were before. But for the rest of you, the stuff that we're covering about what to look for in the sky, this is going to apply to everybody in North America. So we're all going to get to see this kind of good stuff. All right, so what can we look for in the sky this coming week? Ooh. So there's Observatory Park at night. And it's a great view of some stars. Ooh. Oh, thanks. This is where we all get to ooh virtually. Ooh. There's no ooh button on Zoom. I want to add a button where we can, at some point, I'll just kind of go ooh collectively. But I wanted to point out, because this has been a particularly interesting week. Again, pat yourselves on the back. This was an astronomically cool week because we just had a special day called the equinox. Now, give a thumbs up if you knew what the equinox was. I just love saying equinox because it has an X in it. That makes it sound really cool. We got a few. It means we entered a new season. We said goodbye to summer, and we said hello to, I can tell you're all thinking it. Yes, fall or autumn. So it's the autumnal equinox. It's when autumn starts. Good stuff. Oh, we're getting a lot of good, that was a good fall type there in the chat. Somebody really put in a lot of letters. Fall. Oh, good stuff. And if you're watching what happens in the sky, the reason why we know that happens, it's not just some arbitrary day that we marked on the calendar. It's when the sun sets perfectly in the west. Ooh. And so this is a picture of the sidewalk, the pavement at Observatory Park. And we put a compass in there, and it's got 4 main compass directions, north, east, south, and west. And the sun always sets more or less near one of those. I like to say this is the G-rated version of this story. If you ask people where the sun sets, most of us, when we were little kids, somebody told us the sun sets in the west. Then that's usually pretty true. But I think you folks are ready for the PG version of this story. You ready? The sun doesn't always set exactly in the west. I know. The sun will actually set between the northwest and the southwest over the course of the year. And I'm going to try and draw this in. So we are going to get really fancy. Oh my goodness, yes. Oh, good stuff. Ooh, I've drawn in an arrow to show you where the sun set on that equinox day. But those other white stripes in the pavement at Observatory Park, they can show you where the sun sets in the summertime. It sets way in the northwest. And in the winter, it sets way down in the southwest. And every day in between, the sun moves a little bit in where we see it set. It's not always setting in exactly the same place. But this past week, on a special day, September the 22nd, we had our equinox, the first day of fall, and that's when the sun sets exactly in the west. Ooh. So I grabbed a snapshot of the sun setting there at the end of that stripe in the pavement. There's a little yellow line showing you that stripe in the pavement. And we have a couple of different, oh, so much fun. We have a couple of different stripes there to show where the sun sets on special days across the year, because the first day of fall, the equinox, isn't the only special day. Those first days of the other seasons, the first days of winter and the first day of summer, those are called the solstice days. Ooh. I just love saying words like solstice and equinox. Those are really good words if you want to win at Scrabble or Words with Friends. If you can play equinox, that's a guaranteed win. Ah, nice. But on those other days, those solstice days, there are other stripes in the pavement that show where the sun will set. So in this particular right now, I'm showing you where the sun is going to set on the first day of winter, the winter solstice. All right, anybody really good at their trivia? What month does the first day of winter happen in? And for bonus points, if you can remember the dates, that would be really cool too. When is the first day of winter? When is our winter solstice? Oh, somebody's going to rise to the challenge. Wow, people are crushing this. Nicely done. Yes, on our half of the planet, the north half of the planet, it's in December. And yeah, this year it'll be December 21st or 22nd. It's a leap year, so it's usually the 21st. This year it's gonna be a little bit late. But if you knew that, pat yourselves on the back. But I want you to remember that date, that coming up date of the first day of winter, December the 21st. Remember it later, because it's gonna be extra special this year for another reason. So if you ever get to visit Observatory Park, be sure to check out the pavement and see where the sun sets over the course of the whole year. And, take a little pride in the fact that we just welcomed in a new season. Thanks to that equinox. But another great thing about the equinox is that now we're passing into days when we can get a lot more astronomy done. Or at least that's how I look at it. The rest of the world says this is when we start getting into sunsets that happen really early. The sun is going to appear to set a little bit earlier and earlier, about 2 minutes earlier each day until the end of winter. So that makes a lot of people who like sunshine sad. But if you are like me and you like the night sky, this is the good time of year. It's going to be dark enough to see the stars by 7:30 this week. Nice. So what else is going to be up in that sky this week? Let me try and show you another picture. Ooh. And I faked you out. This is not a picture of the sky. This is a picture of something on the Earth. A super important historic site. Let's see if anybody in the chat recognizes where in the world this is. Yeah. All right, I'll give you a hint. It's in Ohio. Oh, nicely done. We got somebody. Liz Zab got it. This is a big mound of earth in the shape of a serpent. So it's very creatively called the Serpent Mound. And this was built untold centuries ago by the ancient Native Americans who lived here in Ohio. And they piled up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these earthwork structures that would make different shapes, like animals and magical creatures. A lot were geometric shapes, like circles and squares and octagons. But I wanted to point out this one because it's one of the most famous because it's very well preserved. It's still in great shape. And it has a connection to that special day we just talked about. It's connected to the equinox. and to the winter solstice. If you visit the Serpent Mound, you can see it has these big wavy bends in its body, and the three in the middle point to where the sun rises on those special days when the seasons change in summer and spring and winter and in fall as well. So I just kind of like that. This trend of marking where special days, where the sun rises and sets in special days, this isn't something new that we invented at Observatory Park. This has been going on for centuries and centuries here on the Earth. And my particular favorite is that you can tell what days were important to the people who built Serpent Mound by seeing where the serpent's head is pointed. It's pointed at where the sun sets on the first day of summer, the longest day of the year. So I'm guessing these folks like sunshine a whole lot more than they like darkness. So they're probably not in my yay for early sunsets crowd. Oh, good stuff. So yeah, I just like to try and pile it on top. If you piled Serpent Mound on top of the pavement markers at Observatory Park, they do basically the same job, but Serpent Mound does it with a lot more style. Good stuff. All right. So those sunsets are nice. And it's a great week for looking at sunsets. I highly recommend everybody go out and try and view a sunset. The other great thing about choosing this week to check out the sky is you've got somebody else to join you at sunset. You've got a big old moon. Ooh. So again, pat yourselves on the back. If you had done this presentation a week from now or 2 weeks ago, I couldn't have told you, go out and look at the moon after sunset this week. This is a week when the moon is waxing. And that means every day it's going to look like it gets a little bit bigger. We're going to see more and more of its bright, shiny stuff until we come up on a full moon. And that also means a waxing moon is one you can see in the evening. There's other times when you see the moon in the middle of the night. There's times when you see the moon in the morning and you don't see it in the evening. But this is a great week for looking at that evening moon. So be sure to check it out because it's only going to get bigger and fatter until a special day this coming week when we get a full moon. Ooh. And I love a full moon. And if you like full moons too, this is, again, a great time. You picked a super amazing time to look at the sky. There's going to be a full moon coming up on Thursday. That's October the 1st. And October is going to be super special because we don't just get one full moon in October. Nicely done. We're going to get 2 full moons. There's going to be a second one in October. That's super rare. It's so rare that a long time ago, people gave it the cool name a blue moon. Not because the moon actually looks blue, but they used to mark it in blue ink in ye olde records of the sky. But yeah, it takes the moon about 1 month, 1 moonth, to go through its cycle from full to full again. That's where we get the word month from. The word month is just the word moon with a TH stapled onto the end. Neat. So it's kind of cool. And I also like that second full moon is going to happen right on Halloween night. Because there's a lot of times that holidays correspond to the phases of the moon. And it's pretty cool that our official trick-or-treating holiday that we modern Americans have whipped up falls on the night of a full moon this month. Ooh. And lunar calendars are nothing new. People have been using them all around the world, but I wanted to call attention to one in particular that kind of has a local connection. Sorry, Christie's talking about putting 2020 on reset. I know that's a popular sentiment. A lot of people would like to do that. But one cool lunar calendar I wanted to call attention to is from the Miami tribe, the Miami folks, who live mostly in Western Ohio, was their traditional heartland. And now there's a lot of them in Arizona, excuse me, I should say Oklahoma as well. But they still publish the amazing traditional lunar calendar. And so this time of the year that we modern American English speakers are calling October, if you check out the Miami calendar, it's called the Smoky Burning Moon. Ooh. Because it was a time of year for setting fires to clear land for crops and herd management in the future. But the second moon coming up after this is a little bit more famous. After Halloween night, October the 31st, it's going to be called the Buck Moon. because you'll start noticing a whole lot more young bucks getting a whole lot more active and frisky that time of the year. So watch those of you driving after sunset this coming month. Keep an eye out for deer. But I think that's kind of cool. That was a name that kind of caught on. A lot of people will call it a buck moon. Nice. Oh. But one other holiday, again, because you picked the most amazing time of the year to ask about what's going on in the sky. Another holiday that's coming up this week for the full moon on the 1st is China's Mid-Autumn Festival, or it's called the Moon Festival. And I believe Cleveland's celebration of that is happening literally as we speak. But I believe the festivities go on throughout the week. If you're willing to swing on by, they've spread it out over the course of a week to allow for a little more social distancing. And so, yeah, it's marked by viewing the moon and celebrating the harvest and getting your whole family together from all over, which sounds an awful lot like a coming up autumn holiday that you might know. Oh, nice. But of course, everybody else knows this holiday as the Mooncake Festival, because that's when they make these little delicious cakes in the shape of the moon. Oh, nicely done. It's something to look out for. So check near you, see if anybody's got any mooncakes for sale. It's the best time of the year to observe the moon. Oh, nicely done. Whew. So the moon is great, but I thought we'd go on to some of the other cool stuff that's going on in the sky, like the connected odd pictures you can make in the stars. So here's a tough, tricky quiz for you folks. I'm showing you a terrible snapshot of the stars that I took because I'm the worst photographer in the universe. But if you've got really good astronomical skills, you might recognize a connected odd star picture in these stars that I'm showing you. Let's see if anybody wants to rise to the challenge. Oh, Virgo and Libra, good guesses. Potic family's guessing the Big Dipper. I like that. Let's see if we can get one more guess. Oh, another Big Dipper. Ursa Major. I can't fool any of you folks. You're totally right. This is totally the part of the sky that Americans call the Big Dipper and the ancient Greeks called Ursa Major. So if you recognize that one, pat yourself on the back. But like I said, this is a horrible photo. So let me switch. There we are, to an illustration using a star map that we would use here in the planetarium. And I've also kind of rotated it to the way it'll appear in the sky after the sun sets. So after the sun sets, you just kind of look straight above where the sun is this week. And as the sun fades, you'll probably notice, oh yeah, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bright lights of the Big Dipper. Let me try and connect the dots here. Ah, yes. See, everybody on the north half of the planet can see these stars, and everybody's got their own name for it. Whether it's Ursa Major or the Big Dipper, or if you ask the folks in England, they don't call it the Big Dipper, they call it a plow, right? Kind of looks like a plow there. You could hook that up to a horse, drag it through a field. Maybe. Yeah, it always makes it a little confusing when we rotate stuff. And that's what the sky does every hour of the night. So that can make it a little bit tricky. But here's one little trick of the imagination. This one doesn't take rotating skills. This one takes extra imagination. Let's see if you can imagine this as an animal. All right, if you were ancient and Greek and you had nothing to do at night but look at the stars, this was supposed to look like, oh, bird is a great guess. I always thought it kind of looked like a squashed frog or a backwards possum. Fox is another good one. I can never quite make up my mind. Lizard, duck. I'll be honest, I like all of your guesses better than what the ancient Greeks thought this was. Because, oh, Nick got it. The ancient Greeks thought this was a bear. Somehow. I'll let you in on a huge secret. I've been looking at these stars for about 30 years now. I know, and I cannot see a bear to save my job. But somehow, from that to this, you can get this bear with a ridiculously long tail. So there's a whole weird story from ancient Greek mythology associated with her and how she got put up in the sky. But the long story short is she used to be a human woman, and then she had a series of unfortunate events that led to her being converted into a bear. And her son was a hunter and didn't know his mom had been turned into a bear. He just saw this bear in the woods one day, and he saw, delicious bear. Got out his bow and arrow. He was ready to shoot his mom. And then finally, somebody got off their throne and did something. So the ancient Greek story is that Zeus, the king of Mount Olympus in the old stories, looked down and saw that this bear was about to be shot by her son. And so he said, and the best plan he could come up with was to grab her by her tail and start swinging her around and throw her up into the sky where she'd be safe. And when he did that, her tail stretched out, and that completely explains why there's a long-tailed bear floating up in the sky. Nice. I know. I think that's kind of a baloney story. But yeah, if you've got that good of an imagination, you deserve to have your story in the sky for a little while. But if you're like me and you don't quite get that long-tailed bear story, there's other ways to connect the dots in your imagination. Like we said, you can make your own lizard, like somebody suggested before. You can call it a Big Dipper, the way most Americans do. I wanted to point out one other cool way. The Native Americans of Ohio started the story that this is a fisher. It's a kind of really big weasel, almost as big as a wolverine and much bigger than a skunk. It's not an animal you see too often, but we have a preserved one here at the Nature Center. Grr, grr, that's a scary face. I know, they just love to weasel around, eat fish, and get into fights with other fishers. And they kind of have a long, wiggly body. So I can really imagine that long, wiggly connection to stars is one of those fisher weasels. So that's my challenge for you. If you can go out and spot the Big Dipper, try and use your imagination to turn it into the great big fisher weasel, just for a change of pace. Oh, nice. So the other handy thing about the Big Dipper is it's big and it's bright and it's up almost every night of the year. Like we said, it'll be up right after sunset this week. And even though it twists, we can usually catch where it is. And even though it's constantly changing its position, you can use the Big Dipper to find other stars that are normally a little bit trickier to find. So, all right, here's the challenge. If you can spot the Big Dipper, which is right at the center of our screen, I'll kind of connect the dots. If you follow the imaginary line that its curvy Big Dipper handle is making, or I guess that'd be the curvy end of the big bear's tail or the fisher's tail, it points to a super duper bright star. That's usually one of the first 3 stars that I spot in the sky this time of year. And that super bright star is named Arcturus. And it's one of the biggest stars that humans have ever found nearby in our galaxy. It's enormous. If we put Arcturus where our sun is now in our solar system, we Earthlings would be inside the star. It is so big, it would swallow up Earth and stretch out beyond our orbit. That's a gigantic star. And yeah, it's super bright. It's kind of got an orange color, and you can find it right by following the Big Dipper's handle. Nice. And my 5th grade teacher told me this, and it stuck with me ever since, that you just remember that you can follow the curve or the arc of the Big Dipper's handle, and it'll point you to a star named Arcturus. Aha, you can arc to get to Arcturus. Oh, nice. Susan thought that might have been the North Star. Yeah, there's a lot of slander and bad rumors going around about the North Star. I don't know who started that. So raise your hand if anybody's ever told you this, or give a cool digital thumbs up. Has anybody ever told you that the North Star is the brightest star in the sky? Yeah, my mom used to tell me that. I know. It's not true at all. I'm afraid I don't know how that started. It must have been started by somebody who'd never seen the North Star. The North Star is much, much, much fainter than most of the other stars we see. In fact, the North Star is in this picture I'm showing you right now. And I don't think my doodling tool is working. But if you want, it's just up and to the left of where the Big Dipper is. Da, 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 da. It's that one little star that's not all that bright, but it's not surrounded by any other stars. So yeah, the North Star is usually a little tricky to find. It's not the biggest, it's not the brightest, and it's never the first one you see. But if you want to find another bright star, you can kind of keep following this pattern that I showed you. Follow the Big Dipper to Arcturus. Keep going in that direction, and you get to another super duper bright star. That's kind of a different color. It's kind of a blue color, and its name is Spica. So the handy rhyme that everybody passes on is that you could follow an arc to get to Arcturus, and then make a spike to get to Spica. And Spica is not the most famous star in the world, but it is part of a super famous constellation called Virgo. Ooh. So Virgo's not the biggest, brightest, easiest to spot constellation, unlike, say, the Big Dipper, but she does have that one really bright star in her called Spica. And usually in the drawings, that's like a big piece of grain or an ear of corn or something. Something that grew in the ground. Oh, question, Kathleen? Oh, no, we're good. Yeah, so it's easy to find her if you are associated with Virgo, because some people are. People started this tradition where when the sun lines up with a certain group of stars, if that happens on your birthday, they'll say, oh, congratulations, newborn baby, you're matched to this group of stars. And Virgo is one of those stars. The sun can pass through it, so some people get traditionally matched to Virgo. And it's kind of cool that you can spot her this evening. Oh, nicely done. Okay. Phew. Well, we're done with the Big Dipper, but I wanted to point out one other star challenge for you. So the Big Dipper is going to be over in the west where the sun is setting. So this is a little bit of an odd way of viewing the sky. This is like a map of the sky, and it makes the whole sky look like one circle over your head. But if it helps, just remember one way's north, one way's west. That's where the sun sets. Then there's south. But if you look almost straight overhead, there will be these three really bright stars right after sunset. And they make a perfect shape of some sort, as you can imagine three stars might. You'll never, ever guess what kind of a shape three stars make. Oh, yeah, it's a triangle. Nicely done! This is the only one that I can get because it requires zero imagination at all. It's just a triangle. And it's a triangle that shows up in the summertime, so it's very creatively called the Summer Triangle. But we can still see it even though we're going into fall. And inside that triangle, there are three relatively easy to spot constellations. And I said relatively easy to spot because each one has a super bright star in it, and the rest of them take a little bit of imagining. But the three of them are supposed to be birds. There's one named Aquila, one named Cygnus. Oh, nicely done! You've got it. Cygnus is always drawn as a long-necked bird who loves the water. She's either a swan or a goose, depending on who's doing the drawing. And what kind of an animal do you think Aquila is there? You've got it! It's an eagle, usually a bald eagle. So the summer triangle is made up of two birds and a musical instrument. I don't know why. It seems like it could have been three birds just as easily. In fact, if you check some really old star maps, they draw that harp called Lyra, the third part of the summer triangle. Some people draw that harp being held by a bird, just so that they keep the whole bird flavor to the summer triangle. But I wanted to call this out in particular because inside that summer triangle, straight overhead this week, that constellation Cygnus, birds are musical. That makes a good match to a musical instrument. Good call, Christy. This is my all-time favorite constellation, and I totally play favorites. Cygnus, the swan or the goose, she's my favorite because she shows up here in the late summer and the fall, right when we start seeing a whole lot more geese in our skies in reality. And where are all the geese going this time of the year? Where do our geese go in the late summer and fall? Most of them go south. It would be amazing if they went to space, but they're mostly going south. And this group of stars in the sky that we call a swan or a goose, she's pointed right towards the south. So not only does she show up when the geese are migrating, she's going in the same direction. And my other favorite thing about her is she follows a special path across the sky. If you look really carefully at this picture I'm showing you, she follows a stripe in the sky called the Milky Way path. And she follows it. Nicely done. Liz got that one. She follows the Milky Way to go south for the winter, right when the real geese do. I think that's amazing. Makes her one of my best friends. It also means, oh, sorry, Tim added some peanuts to my Milky Way, and he's calling it a Snickers constellation. Good try. I'm not falling for it. Oh, good stuff. But yeah, that Milky Way stripe is usually very faint. If you want to see it, you've got to get somewhere where there isn't a whole lot of electric light around you. And Observatory Park's one of those places. So if you ever come out on a nice clear night when there's not a full moon, you've got a good view of the Milky Way. And September's a great month for doing that. Oh, nicely done. All right. I just want to show you one other way of connecting the dots. These are the constellations that weren't laid down by modern astronomers. They weren't laid down by the ancient Greeks. These were laid out by the traditional residents of the Great Lakes region. This is by the Ojibwe tribe. And I like it that even in their star pictures, which they never consulted with the folks from ancient Greece about, both cultures agreed that that group of stars called Cygnus looks like a bird. In the top center, they have the exact same star group that we called Cygnus before, labeled as a bird. Only they didn't call it a swan. The Ojibwe name for that bird-shaped group of stars, they said it was a sandhill crane. Another large bird that lives here in the Great Lakes region and migrates through in the autumn. I always thought that was kind of cool. Everybody on Earth agrees that those stars look like some kind of a bird. Whew. All right, so now that our imagination's got a huge workout and you are all set to imagine pictures in the sky, I thought I'd point out something that's a little bit easier to spot because it requires no imagination. And there are planets out there. And one slat more, pat yourselves on the back. You picked just about the best month of this year for looking at planets because right after the sun sets by 8:30 or even 9 o'clock, you can see 4 planets using just your eyeballs. No telescope required. So you can see 3 planets up in the sky, Jupiter, Saturn, and then a little bit later, Mars. And as a bonus, if you look down between your shoes, you can see a 4th planet, Earth. Haha. We tend to take it for granted, but you can see it too. So that's kind of half the solar system in one night. That's pretty great. Oh, nice. And in fact, tonight, they're going to be super easy to spot because remember that evening moon we mentioned earlier? They're going to be just to the right of that moon. So if you're standing on the ground anywhere in North America, you face the moon, the 2 bright lights to the right of that are Jupiter and Saturn. And I'll let you folks guess which of those planets is going to look brighter. Which do you think would be brighter, Jupiter or Saturn? Which is going to be the brighter one? And it's okay to be wrong. We'll take random guesses. Somebody guessed Jupiter. Oh, that's Tim. Saturn is a good guess. Another vote for Saturn. An S for Saturn. Those are all great guesses, but I'll give you another clue. Of those 2 planets, Jupiter is a little bit bigger than Saturn, and it's also a lot closer to Earth. So which one do you think is going to reflect more sunlight back at the Earth? You've got it! Jupiter is always going to be the brighter one when you watch those 2 planets up there in the sky. So yeah, Jupiter, for most of us, is probably going to be the first light other than the sun and the moon that we see. Every time I see Jupiter, I'm seeing it at like 7:30 when the sun hasn't finished setting, and I have to blink really hard and remind myself that it's not a slow-moving airplane. It's that bright. So be sure to check out Jupiter and Saturn, and the moon will be right next to them. And then by about 9 o'clock, if you're willing to stay up a little later, Mars will be up to join them. Ooh. So I thought I'd give you a glimpse of what some of these look like up close. So if you visited Observatory Park, here's a quick snapshot of what Jupiter looks like through one of our public telescopes. And we got this photo through the highly technical process of a 5th grader held her cell phone up to the telescope and just snapped a picture. And that's the picture of Jupiter she got. So that's the worst Jupiter picture you will ever see from Observatory Park. And there's something similar for Saturn. So this is a great autumn. If you can get a chance to, if you know anybody with a telescope, or you can make it to Observatory Park or to any of the other great spots in North America that'll let you look through a telescope, this is a great fall for looking at those 2 planets, Jupiter and Saturn. Oh yeah, they're going to be huge and beautiful and amazing, as long as there aren't any clouds. And the other super amazing thing about them is, even if you've got just a pair of binoculars, you can usually tell that Saturn has a little bit of a bulge on either side. That might be its ring. So here's the picture I took by holding my cell phone up to a pair of binoculars. Highly technical process. But this is Jupiter, and you can even see that 4 of its moons are lined up there right across the picture. So yeah, you could even be able to pick out Jupiter's moons with a pair of binoculars. So it's well worth a try, whatever you've got to help you get a clear view of those planets. And then, of course, if you really want a close-up view, you can send a space probe there. So these pictures are from the it's from the Juno space probe, who's visiting Jupiter right now, and she sends back new pictures every day. And something similar for Saturn took place a few years back when a space probe called Cassini got there, and it took these amazing pictures. Because if you want to see them up close, you've just got to go there. And it's a lot easier to do that if you're a robot than if you're a human astronaut. Good times. So if that wasn't cool enough that you can see those 2 planets, it's only going to get better. Because every day between now and a special day, December the 21st, those 2 planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are going to get closer and closer and closer together. So if you go out tonight, you can hold out your hand at arm's length, and your hand will fit in between those 2 planets. But if you try that in December, it won't work. On December the 21st, they are going to be so close that they actually line up, and they're going to look like almost one big bright dot in the sky. So this is something cool. You can keep an eye on them getting closer and closer and closer together until that special day, December the 21st, which was already special for another reason. Anybody remember what's special about every December the 21st every year? It's not an equinox. It's the... You got it! It's the first day of winter. It's always our winter solstice. And by an amazing coincidence, that's also going to be the night when Jupiter and Saturn appear to line up almost perfectly. So I'm showing you here a simulated view of what we expect it's going to look like. Even if we just point one of our telescopes at it, we'll be able to see both planets at the same time through one telescope. That's amazing! And it's super rare. This has not happened since 1623. It has been centuries since these 2 planets lined up almost perfectly like this. And it's not going to happen again for decades. So yeah, I say go for it. We are going to be watching that super closely. So that's Jupiter and Saturn. And the other planet that we mentioned you can see a little bit later, like I said, it'll probably be above the trees for most of us by 9 p.m., is Mars. And once again, you picked an amazing time to look at Mars. Mars is rising a little bit earlier every day. So by about the time we get into October, it's going to be coming up right when the sun is setting. By October the 13th, you're going to be able to see Mars right after sunset. But it's getting closer and closer and closer to Earth than it normally does. Normally, it's one of our 2 nearest neighbor planets, Mars on the one side of the sun, of us, and then Venus a little closer to the sun than us. But Mars is taking the cake right now. Mars is getting a little bit closer to Earth every day. And this October, it's going to set kind of a close approach record. It's going to be close enough. Ooh. It's the closest it's been since 2018. And this is also the closest it's going to be until 2035. Oh, nice. Somebody's asking about Venus. We'll bring that up. But I want to finish about Mars first. Don't even forget, we'll bring up Venus. So it's about, let's call it 38.5 million miles away this coming month. But the way I like to imagine that is because millions of miles hurt my head. Sending a radio signal. Oh, nice. Adriana's asking how we can see these planets, and you're totally right. That's just that they reflect sunlight back at us. The sun is always putting out a whole lot of light, so any object out there will look brighter than the surrounding blackness of empty outer space. And the closer and the bigger the object is to you, the brighter it'll appear because it'll reflect more sunlight at you. So even though Mars is kind of small, even though it's only about half the size of the Earth, it's getting closer and closer and closer. So by mid-October, it's going to look almost as bright as Jupiter does, even though Jupiter is like 10 times the size of the Earth and much farther away. It's pretty cool. Nicely done. Yeah. Liz is pointing out that, yeah, we can see the space station, even though, okay, it's about the size of, let's say, a football field once you include all its big, bright solar panels. and it's about 250 miles up in the sky, but it reflects a whole lot of sunlight back at us. So when it passes overhead right after sunset, the space station shows up as this big, bright, shiny, reflecting light. It always reminds me of that trick people do where they use their watches to reflect the sun right into people's eyeballs. And yeah, if it reflects the sun at just the right angle, you can really blind people. Oh, nice. Panic Family's asking something about Mars. Oh, about the next. That's a great question. And so the short answer is these close approaches that Earth and Mars make, it's not like Mars is walking right up to us. I should have done an illustration for this, but instead I'm going to do this in a super low-tech way with markers and paper. So here's the worst map of the solar system you will ever see. You get the sun. We'll make the Earth going around it. And just for good measure, this is a terrible picture. Oh, nice. So you get the sun in the middle, the path that the Earth follows as it orbits the sun, and then outside, like the outside lane on a racetrack, there's Mars out there. So how far apart Earth and Mars are can change a whole lot depending on where we are in our tracks. Like sometimes you'll get Earth is here and Mars is on the opposite side of the solar system. So that means the distance from Earth to Mars got really far. But right now we're getting to a point where we're here and Mars is on the same side of the solar system as we are. Kind of cool. And this is also something you can double check about this in your mind. That means if you live here on the Earth, the sun and Mars will be on opposite sides of the sky when Mars is close. And that's exactly what you're going to see next month, because you can watch when the sun goes down over here, point your right arm towards it, your left arm will automatically be pointed at where Mars is coming up. That's pretty cool. Oh, nice. You guys are good sports. And the other cool thing about Mars is it's about to be joined by a whole bunch of new robots. Ooh. Because Mars is passing kind of close to us, folks took advantage of that and launched some space probes back this summer. This is the one that NASA sent. It's a big rover called Perseverance, and it carries with it a little helicopter called Ingenuity. And this is going to be the first helicopter that anybody's ever tried to fly on another planet. I think that's going to be kind of fun to watch. So these were launched back in July, and they're going to get to Mars in February, because it takes that long to get from the Earth to Mars. Or my favorite way of pointing it out, even though Mars and Earth are going to be really close together this fall, it's still going to take a radio signal to go from Earth to Mars. It's still going to take 3 minutes and 27 seconds. So if you think the lag delay that we get here using Zoom on the Earth is a lot, imagine having to wait 3 minutes and 27 seconds both ways for messages to go to Mars. Whew! I'm glad you folks are a lot closer than Mars. And I thought we'd point this out. That robot is planning to, so much lag. That robot is planning to land in a special crater called Jezero Crater. It's up on the north side of the planet. It's only about 30 miles wide, and it's kind of cool. And as I understand it, AMLA has Slovenian roots in its benevolent association, and I couldn't resist the connection. This crater has Slovenian roots too. The name Jezero is a common Slavic name for lake. And it got that name because in the maps that spacecraft have made of this crater, it looks like it used to be a lake. You can kind of see in this picture here where low things are tinted blue and high up things are tinted red and white. It looks like a river used to flow into this crater from the left and flow out on the right. So that little geologist robot is really excited about looking at these ancient lake rocks that are all piled up where the river came into Jezero Crater. I think that's kind of cool. Oh, nicely done. Will you guys have been, when's it going to land? The plan is it'll land in mid-February, on or about February the 18th. Nicely done. So if you want to find out what's happening at Observatory Park, we gave you the cool website right there, or just what's going on in the sky. Christy and I are going to work on sending out. Everybody is going to get a cool map of the sky from us at some point in the coming days. That way.
give me till Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday back in the office. My folks on the video, my normal process is definitely a follow-up. So
No worries. So thanks. No, that's going to be great. That way, if something we told you, you didn't write down everything we said, oh my goodness, no need to. You'll get a cool sky calendar telling you most of that cool stuff again. Oh, did Mars ever have water? So it sure looks like it from the pictures we've seen, but that's one of the questions this robot is going to answer up close by testing the rocks in person. Well, you guys were amazing. Pat yourselves on the back. It was so much fun talking about space with you folks. And I hope you're willing to try out those cool space homework assignments I gave you. Checking out those 2 full moons here in October. Looking for Jupiter and Saturn and maybe even Mars later. And waiting for those 2 planets to line up this December. I'm excited.